Okay, so doing a hangout with actually someone I've been a big fan of for
Stop.
starting with the flattery. It's gonna go downhill from here. No, I'm just
Uh-huh.
kidding. Yeah, I've been trying to get people on that I found have interesting view on just general stuff because I've been I haven't been commenting. You've probably seen few of my comments, and lately I've been commenting a lot of wrestling gifs your way.
I think that's something I'm trying to spread on Twitter. It's sort of like my grand opus, if you want to say it.
Yeah, your legacy, right?
Hmm.
Your online print.
My
Yeah,
legacy, yeah.
yeah, and like I just remember seeing your video, and I really don't subscribe to people. I don't really care if they have really big channels. I subscribe to them if they have interesting views.
Mm,
And I remember I came. I think you were in like suggested or just randomly came
yeah.
over over your channel and just liked what you had on your channel, and
Wait, when was that?
like 2 years ago, something like that.
Let me go back and see what videos I had 2 years ago. Because if they're bad, then they're
It
probably, well, they're all bad, to be
um
honest.
I see. I think it's 2.5 or something years ago. 'Cause I saw you
Yeah.
were talking a little bit about Gamergate. You were talking
Mm,
about gaming,
hmm, hmm, hmm.
your ADHD workout. I mean, and you're talking about all sorts of stuff. So
Yeah.
um and I just found it intriguing. So I know you're a PC Master Race guy, right?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of PC gaming in general. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to upgrade my PC and now next month because
Hmm.
it's becoming to it's really old now. It's 8 years old, and
Oh wow.
it's about time I upgraded it. So and just generally now that it's been post E3,
Okay.
what do you think about like just the general state of the industry right now?
The general state of the industry. That's a pretty broad question.
Yeah, but
um,
do you think we are heading in positive direction with gaming? Because we saw the whole Battlefront thing last year. Do you think it's going in a positive direction regarding the development of gaming? Do you think just generally?
I don't think gaming has ever been going in a positive direction.
Okay.
Even even when we had the golden era of like NES and Super NES and Genesis and PS1, PS2, I think at that time budgets were just far more. I wouldn't really count PS2 because we had the Killzone incident, but I think during that time budgets weren't as inflated as they are now. And I think you had a much more controlled idea of what you're going to spend your development money on rather than how you're going to milk as much money from the consumer. So I think it was always moving in this direction. I just think the difference is that we never really had such a quick way of responding to the industry in a sense of not having Twitter, not having YouTube, not having Facebook, not having all these ways for customers to just lash out and say, look, you're really doing the wrong thing. And with E3 now and a lot of the backpedaling that we're seeing from EA, we're seeing from everything else, I think it's really interesting to see what the voices of people can really do as consumers. And there are people that naysay and say, well, you're still going to buy it anyways, you're still going to do things like that. But I think in this case, it shows that public perception is always greater than the truth, I would think in some ways. So I think the way EA is being perceived, they're finally seeing it as something as it can affect their pocketbook. And the backtracking for Star Wars, especially what we're seeing right now with other games, I'm still very concerned with. I forgot the name of the name. EA's other game from BioWare,
Anthem.
Anthem. I'm still incredibly concerned for that game. I feel like that game is going to cause BioWare to shutter. Like they're going to close BioWare down after that launch.
Yeah, because they basically said that it's basically all hands on deck.
Yeah,
They've taken at least from what I read, developers from other parts of the company, and they are working on that game.
yeah,
And I mean, I see this stuff with Activision as well. I know you made a video, I think a week ago or something,
mm,
talking about Black Ops, for example, where they are jumping on this train, removing single player on
right,
uh, on Black Ops,
right,
and I see this trend of. We hear this constantly, like this multiplayer is the thing we should go after, and something we should chase where we can get unlimited amounts of money. But I mean, we see this constant refutation of this with even small games like Cuphead. We had
mm.
God of War, even if it's a filthy console peasant game. Uh,
I haven't played it, so I don't know if it's any good, but I do know on the pro version it hit 60, so I'm pretty happy about that.
yeah, but I would just see it. Just I grew up on single player game. I'm a '90s kid. Grew up during the '90s, and there was no internet back then.
Right.
And sorry, and just generally, I sorry,
You
got
okay?
something in my throat. Yeah, I'm just grabbing something to drink. Yeah, but what do you think about that development?
Um, for BioWare or for
No, just the trend of focusing on multiplayer instead of
oh,
single player.
I'm sorry on that. Um, I think we're seeing it move towards games as a service, and I think we're just seeing those initial steps of you no longer actually owning a video game. It's those kinds of like forewarnings can sort of come back and bite you. Um, I honestly don't think that the United States, personally, right now, the U.S. does not have the infrastructure to support purely games as a service or even cloud-based gaming, just because of data caps and other issues that we're also dealing with right now. But service-based games, I don't think are a terrible thing if they're priced properly. I think that if you're going to provide me a game that I do not own, that is a service that has to use your servers, your functionality, your cloud computing, you're hosting everything. I don't have a copy of it. I don't get to play it whenever I want. Then I feel that game should be free. I feel like if you're deciding to take the burden off of me and put it onto yourself, and you're the one controlling the entire IP, you're controlling the experience, I should not have to pay for the experience that you're trying to cater to me. If you're going to limit my access to the game, you're going to limit everything that I do with the game, then that's not a product that I should pay for. I mean, that's from my point of view. I think if what we're seeing right now is Activision doing the multiplayer only focused Call of Duty, and they're going to charge you $60, and they're going to charge you a $40 season pass, and they're going to put all these things behind it. And I think that is a incredible anti-consumer behavior and anti-consumer practice, because you are cloning off and you're closing off, excuse me, so many things that people really look forward to in so many video games. And the reason why this becomes an issue when people say like, well, you're a PC gamer guy, why are you taking issue with this? This is for console guys. And it's because these things carry over. When you have the largest company in video games, I think they are the largest. Tencent has a majority stake in them, don't they? Or at least like something like 10%, something around there.
Yeah, I believe. I think Activision is a little bit bigger than EA when it comes to
Yeah,
stock prices and the size of the company.
you've got one of the largest gaming companies in the world doing this, and to me, it only says that people will begin to follow lockstep behind this, because they're saying, well, if Call of Duty did it and they got away with it, why can't we? And I think that's what you're going to be seeing with EA as well. You're going to be seeing that sort of like, because they love to do that. They'll just follow the leader, and then they'll try to make revenue whatever they can along the way behind Activision. They do it all the time.
Yeah, we saw that with the online pass, for example.
Yeah, we did. And then EA gets called out for it because they push that boundary far more than Activision does. Because when you think about it, not even Call of Duty has day one DLC. I mean, like to put that into perspective, Call of Duty has, to my knowledge, not had day one DLC. They just implemented loot boxes, but even then they haven't done that. They've done expansion packs and map packs. So even they haven't gone as far as EA has. And I think people begin to push those lines when you see someone like Activision moving that. Then you see games like PUBG and Fortnite and these kind of games moving in that direction. It becomes a little bit scary. It becomes sort of like the I forget the story of the chicken that screamed the sky's falling. You know, like when do you really believe it, right? Like when do you say, okay, like this is really going to come? And it's kind of wild to see what's going to happen. But I think that's what's going to stop me from buying new games. I'll be very picky with what I buy. I'm very picky with what I buy right now, just because I'm getting older. But AAA industry doesn't really appeal to me anymore. I'm more falling into like the indies sort of things. I'm really liking that. I'm going back and emulating all my old consoles that I lost from moving so many times, and I'm falling more into that kind of thing, just playing older games that I find to be more mechanically sound and just better, well designed than just flash in the pan graphics.
Yeah, I kind of fall in that category as well, because I don't buy games new anymore. There's maybe 1 or 2 games each year that I buy. One that I usually just buy new is PAS, which is the rival of FIFA, if you even can call it that. It's way smaller than FIFA, but at least with that, because I have my brother who plays FIFA like almost professionally, and just listening to how he's talking about the rubber banding and all that bullshit in FIFA is why I play PAS, for example. And just getting older, like I just can't deal with all the bullshit within the games industry, with, as you said, with day one DLC. And I don't know if you caught this, but with this is also really scummy by Activision. With Call of Duty, you have to buy the deluxe edition or the special
season
edition
pass
for the season pass. Yeah. And that's really scummy as well.
It's $100, right?
Yeah, it's $100.
Yeah.
So unless you know you're not gonna buy the season pass, you have to basically buy the $100 version of it.
But think about it like this: you buy the $60 version. Your friends get the new maps because they bought the $100 version. You don't. You're locked out of the new map plays and the new map rotations. You can't play the new stuff that your friends are playing because it tells you you're not playing the new stuff because you don't have the deluxe edition. I don't know if they're going to sell the season pass separately or not. I'm sure they would at some point. So then you're sort of like being, when they say they don't want to split the player base, but then they tell you you can't join this playlist because you don't have these maps. They sort of like force you into buying these maps because the people you're playing with on an online only game are on those maps and you're not. So what are you going to do? You're not going to play with your friends, right? So like, of course you're going to play with your friends. Just give us the $40, or hell, do the worst thing and just buy the game again for $100. So you spend $160 instead of the $100. So
yeah,
I mean, it gets kind of scary, and you're thinking to yourself, like, gaming is already an expensive hobby.
Yeah.
Every 5 or 6 years, we're spending $400 to $500 on a new console, and then that console's obsolete by the time I get it in my hands. And then $60 for a new game, $30 for a season pass, microtransactions, loot boxes, online access, which is ridiculous, which is a ridiculous charge if you ask me. There shouldn't be, no one should be paying for internet access for peer-to-peer, console-to-console servers.
Yeah.
Even games like Path of Exile on the PC have dedicated servers, and that's a free game with free internet access that you don't pay for. It's just like, none of that makes any sense. And I just look at it and I go, I'm not spending money on it. Like, the only game I'm buying the next couple of months is going to be Octopath Traveler.
Yeah, I saw you raving on it on Twitter.
It is an unbelievable, beautiful game.
Yeah.
It's a 16-bit throwback, and it's just beautiful to me.
Yeah. And that's the best way we can do is vote with our wallets. Now, this is kind of a I was a big fan of the first Destiny. I It got boring after because it didn't have any content, so I just traded it in.
Mhm.
Then the complete edition got, and I bought that one. But Destiny 2 is where it really pissed me off, because I game with a good friend of mine, and we played it very much. We even got the platinum for it. So basically, we got all the achievements for it. And when the Forsaken DLC got announced, I just said I'm out. I don't want to play this anymore, because the crap that it was in Forsaken should have been in the base game, or at least for free, because they've been so shitty against their player base. They've throttled experience points. They've throttled loot, and
Yeah,
all sorts of crap with it, which people have been data mining and found out through, and all the developer is doing it, basically just giving you the middle finger and saying you're gonna continue buying our shit and play our game. And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna play your game, because this should be. I've already paid for a season pass. Why the
right.
hell should I pay for like a year two season pass when your base game isn't even? I mean, the two DLCs which we got was a story of like 1 hour each, and that's total horseshit when you break it down on how much you paid. And the only thing that was worth it were the maps and the strikes.
Yeah, and I also noticed too a lot of it was really just them trying to recover their what $10 billion investment that they made on that game,
Yeah,
or
something
something
like that.
crazy like that, right? And just the amount of money they're squeezing out of that thing is just really reprehensible. I mean, what's $70 for the new expansion?
No,
Is that what it
I
is?
think it's $20. I think.
Let me see. It's like the Forsaken something. Like the version that I saw was 70. I think it was just
Oh,
battle for the
70. I
internet.
thought you said 7. Oh
No,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It might be something like that. It's
something
really.
ridiculous.
Yeah, and I'm like, no, I love the game. I love the gameplay, but everything in that game is just what the developer is doing is just unexcusable. For already supported the game so much,
Mm,
paid the $60 plus the season pass. That is already $100, and they just want more. And I'm like, no, fuck
yeah,
you.
it just becomes this race to like what is the more egregious thing that we can do. Like, what can we get away with next? Is what it feels like to me. Like, what is the next step of what they can do to really just get every single penny? And I think it's okay. The Forsaken 2 is $40 for the expansion, and the game is for Destiny 2 is at $40 right now on discount, if you want to call it that. So it's $80 if you want the whole thing, which is
Jesus.
ridiculous. $80 for a video game, like that just throw $80 for it just. And the thing that really gets to me is like, well, inflation back in the 80s, it's like, no, like you can't, that is not a clear argument to use because inflation changes from time to time. Just saying inflation doesn't really mean that that's the way it should be, because what you're looking at and what you're ignoring is basic economics. Because the whole point is there may have been inflation at that time, but the price of the market and what the market will bear for that price of that product fit at that time. It
Yeah.
doesn't fit now, right? Just saying inflation is like just the smallest piece of the puzzle to try and prove your point. And so many articles come out about that as that they're defending like the pricing of these games, and it's just ridiculous to me.
Yeah, well, then they would also have to take into account that the gaming market has surpassed everything else
It
in entertainment.
absolutely. And they're making more money now than they ever have been. So what is the problem?
Yeah, exactly. I saw someone in the chat, because he John Jin Moulton, Ask, did you guys get the Guild Wars 2 Twitter drama with Jennifer Price? She has been fired
Mm.
from ArenaNet along with another employee.
What happened on Twitter with that?
From my understanding, is basically this dev said something about how Guild Wars 2 and how they worked on it, and there was this guy, probably just someone who dabbled a little bit in programming, just asked, wouldn't it be better to do it maybe this way or that way, just having a little bit of a discussion, and
Mm.
they went off and they just trashed the community and consumers, and especially that one guy. So these two developers just attacked basically their audience, and after the company found out, the developer found out, they got fired.
So she attacked the person tweeting at her about that, or?
Yeah, basically.
All right, I typed Jennifer Price into Twitter and got nothing but pornography, so I don't think that's the way to do it.
I have an article from one other angry gamer, I think. He had a good article about this, if I'm not entirely mistaken. But until I find the article, what do you think about um, just if you're attacking your consumer or your audience, should there be any consequences to that?
I mean, attacking your consumer, like that's there's two sides to every story. I can only imagine, I can honestly only imagine the hellscape that is her Twitter mentions at any point of the day. Right. I can literally only just imagine, right? Because people, even on my Twitter, people get really stupid. And that's when I usually post like the wrestling gifs. So I can only imagine like what her mentions would look like and like the stuff people say to her. So I feel like Twitter is too easy of an access to get at people sometimes. And I think when you're dealing with, you know, shit lobbed at you every day, like if I just look at trolls and stuff, I just kind of like wave it off. I'm like, I don't care, dude. Just mute. Just mute.
Yeah, I gave you the article.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna quote something that she said. You can look at the article yourself.
Sure.
Here are the tweets. Today, in being game female dev, allow me, a person who does not work with you, explain how to do your job. Like next rando asshat who attempts to explain the concept of branching dialogue to me, as if having worked in game narrative for a fucking decade, I've never heard it is getting insta blocked. PSA. And there was some back and forth, and he said, sure dude, now get the fuck out of my feed with your assumption and your entitlement to my time. And
what
here are some more tweets. Since we've
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Here. Since we've got a lot of hurt man feels today, let me make something clear. This is my feed. I'm not on the clock here. I'm not your emotional courtesan just because I'm a dev. Don't expect me to pretend to like you here. The attempts of fans to exert ownership over our personal lives and times are sometimes are something I'm hardcore about stopping. You don't own me, and I don't own you. The kindest thing I can say. I'm glad he's no longer around to keep doing harm. That was, I think, in response to Total Biscuit dying.
Wait, she said that the kindest thing I can say is that Total Biscuit isn't around to keep doing harm?
Yes.
Well, she's just a very immature person.
Yeah, and then she even censored Total Biscuit.
Oh, I'm seeing it here. So I tried to click on her profile, and I'm actually blocked. I've never conversed with this person ever in my entire life.
Let's see if I'm blocked. Yeah, I'm blocked.
Interesting. Oh, well. So here's the thing. I'm reading the tweet by Dreer, and Dreer apparently is a prolific streamer in the Guild Wars community, from what I'm seeing. And he wrote a really interesting thread to read. However, allow me to disagree slightly. I don't believe the issue lies in MMORPG genre itself, as your wording seemingly suggests. I believe the issue lies in the constraints of the living story's narrative design. So it does the when I'm reading it, I'm not seeing any sort of, ill will, ill intent, anything that is could be seen as something like bad. It seems to be coming from someone who really cares about the game and cares about the design of it and just wants to speak to her.
Yeah.
And then I think her bringing in the whole like mansplaining and being a female game dev. I mean, I could care less what gender or sex you are as a game dev. What matters is if you're a good game dev or not.
Yeah.
To me personally, right? It doesn't matter. I don't care what you look like. I don't care what you identify as. I don't care anything. Did you make a great game or not? I think
Yeah.
that to me is far more important than anything else. So with everything that I'm reading right now and everything that I'm seeing, it's disappointing, right? It's just sad and disappointing that the behavior that this kind of behavior is something that she felt was okay to do at that time. And that unfortunately, when you are in the public eye like this and you are in a game development cycle and there are people that are playing your game and you're part of it, you're in the public eye and you are always on the clock, especially on Twitter, especially on that side. And if you don't want to be that, then you need to either have an anonymous Twitter, have a private Twitter, and only accept people follows from people that you know. And that way your messages, aren't thrown everywhere. And then, or just ignore and move on. Like, clearly she has no problem with the block button because I'm blocked. So I don't see what the issue is. But should she have been fired? I mean, that's all in the terms of whatever ArenaNet feels like they should do. I think she should have been like, I think the response to this would have been like, thanks for your input.
Yeah.
Like that's literally all. Like if she even needed to respond, which she didn't, all she had to say was, "Thanks for your input. I appreciate it." And
Or just had a genuine discussion of why that doesn't work, or
well, the thing is, I think if you have a general discussion, especially with someone so large like Dreer, I think what you're going to have is a lot of people just jumping in and the conversation gets really muddled. Twitter's not the best place for a discussion.
True. True.
But I think a simple like, "Hey, cool, thanks. I appreciate it. Thank you for reading it. That's awesome. Like that's a good idea." Or, whatever. It doesn't have to be like this lashing out. I mean, just because, I don't know, it just got really silly and it just got really sad and immature. And I think that, this is coming from a guy who posts professional wrestling gifs as responses. So if I think that something is immature and sad, then that's a pretty big issue.
Yeah.
And me, like, I don't really discuss a lot of politics or political things or Dem SJWs and stuff like that. So I lean away from that as much as I can because I like to see if there's something else usually to conversations. But I think she probably just had a bad day and decided to take it out on this guy and just went to town. So, Polygon and Kotaku are probably going to pick up those articles anyways and start writing.
Well, what I do on my channel, I do delve into politics, but it's more like because it's people who want to make things political. That's when I talk about things. So my big passion is or are movies and games, and because I basically had no online presence before Gamergate started, and that's when I started streaming, and like the last year or so, I've been doing videos and gotten into doing response videos, either with journalists or just people attacking games or movies or whatever.
Right.
And I think it's also important in this day and age to differentiate between the art and the artist. For example, I can enjoy Buffy and Angel even if I hate Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
The person. I think that's also the instance with this Jennifer woman. That you can have these SJW stuff, as long as you don't insert it into games, and the game is good, or the movie is good, or whatever you do, the craft you do, I don't have any issue with it. And even if you do just create your own game and release it in your pocket of the internet,
Mm.
but when you're part of something bigger and just want to create something, don't insert your politics or your views or anything down the throat of people.
Yeah,
And that's why I basically became so vocal about stuff. And I saw this with your channel when we can kind of transition to. I
sure,
mean,
sure.
I saw your videos regarding the you delved into a little bit, but not that much. You talked a
No,
little
not
bit
much.
about gamer. You talked about
Yeah.
Gamergate, but
Mhm.
if you look at all your videos, you mostly talk it in a context of what it is in gaming and what it means. Because you even talked. Here is a 3-year-old video why I stopped talking about Gamergate. So.
Yep. Yep.
Because I know a lot of people just got fed up with it, thought it's just a bunch of bullshit, and it can get too much to times. I mean, it can poison your way of thinking when you just want to enjoy something. Like if you're
Mhm.
watching a movie and just think, oh, that's just SJW crap in my movies or whatever. So I can also understand your take with that. Well, now that you can say Gamergate is dead or whatever, what do you think? Did it do good, or did it do bad for the gaming industry? Do you think?
I think it did both. I think it did both at the same time in a very strange way. Um, I think what happened is it brought to light a lot of issues that we were seeing in the gaming industry that people knew about were happening in the behind the scenes area of, I wouldn't say collusion. That's a very, tenuous word. I personally don't like the word problematic. I think it's very childish. So I like other words that work for it. Tenuous is a good one. Um, and I think what we saw with Gamergate was the smoking gun of, you know, these journalists that are paid to write about video games that should be working by a code of ethics that any journalist should be working by, are not. They're being flown out on trips, they're being sent on vacations, they're being sent swag bags, they're being sent all these great and wonderful things, and skewing, whether they believe it to be or not, they're skewing their review on the game that we are counting on them in order to give us a fair and concise and even balanced perspective of what they consider to be a good game or not. Like, we are putting our faith in these people in order to determine what products we purchase. And so seeing and hearing about all of these, like, this money being spent by publishers for marketing, this money being spent by developers and publishers for, trips and review copies and bags and swag and all this stuff. And it never really hit home until we saw this relationship happen and this issue happen between these individuals, on that front stage, on the internet, on front, and seeing how it can be a very big ethical quandary. And we can say, okay, well, look, this is clearly a problem because you have someone in a position that can really promote a game having a very intense, very personal relationship with someone else. And the relationship isn't the problem. The problem is that they are in two very different positions that are intermingled with each other. And he should simply not be reviewing or speaking about her games, or at least disclose that they're in a relationship so we can understand from that perspective. And I think that's where the big thing happened. And it's just seeing that smoking gun of, like, well, if there's smoke, there's fire. And so bringing all that into light and showing all those things that are like, well, something's wrong in this industry, in this field, and we need to figure out what it is and stop it, because this isn't something that people really care about a lot. To then having it turn into this fight of, well, look, here's an issue, to then gamers are dead, gamers are over, gamers don't have to be your audience, to which they do because we buy the games, to then turning it into making Anita Sarkeesian into Magneto, basically.
Yeah.
Like the this ultimate final boss. And when you're looking at it, she's just capitalizing on attention at the right time. And all you really have to do is just, the only way to win is not to play their game. If you just don't give her attention and you don't support her and you don't talk about her and she doesn't exist, then she disappears out of irrelevancy. No matter how much any of us reporters in the journalistic media try to make her out to be, it's just like, okay, next, I don't care. I'm not clicking your link. I'm not clicking your article. I don't care.
Yeah.
So then she just fades away. And I think at some point when you look at what Anita's trying to say, I feel like at some point her message, people might get mad at this, but I'm going to say it. I feel like there are certain things about her message that ring true. There are certain very small things that ring true. Like
I actually agree, because there are she could have some valid points, but how she is conveying that message,
right, and
that's
I
the issue.
and I think that's the issue, because what we're seeing is someone who, with some real research, some real delving into the medium, caring about the medium, understanding it, going back and saying, hey, look, how can we make characters so well written regardless of what gender they are? You know what I mean? And I can go back and I can find woman after woman after woman after woman, either in the gaming industry or as a video game character, who is written amazingly well. Like off the top of my head is Alex Vance from Half-Life. First thing popped in my head was Alex. Like an incredible character, someone who is written incredibly well, who is so pivotal to the story, and not a word. Not a word. We move towards the visual aspect of what these characters look like rather than what makes them tick. And I think that's such a surface level argument, and an argument that really doesn't hold water, just due to the fact that there's no research behind it. There's nothing behind it that shows that she cares about this medium or this industry. She just cares about like the visual relevancy of what she can do. And then, I think with that, it's also not just what you say, but how you say it.
Yeah.
Are you going to listen to me if I'm screaming at you, telling you that you're sexist, or are you going to listen to me if we sit down and actually have a civilized conversation? And you might think, well, those a couple of points make sense, and okay, those couple of points make sense too, but I don't agree with this, but I agree with this, and maybe we can have a reasonable discussion. And I don't think that's a bad thing. It's just people with two different points of views, and in the end, when you think about it, it's just video games.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's nothing. It's all it is. It's video games, and it's nothing to get mad about on either side. And I think that's the interesting part. I think that's why I stopped talking about Gamergate in general, was just because it just became this political thing, and you're an SJW or you're an alt-right, and I was like, well, I don't talk about politics, and I don't want to. So like, this isn't really for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm done, and then and then people just being doxxed, and then, like all this ridiculous stuff. And then all these, and then the worst case scenario was seeing anti-Gamergate people. Sadly enough, there were quite a few that were people were finding inappropriate material on their home computers and being
Yeah.
arrested, you know,
Yeah.
or things were coming out about them that just weren't favorable as a person. And it's kind of sad. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to back away. I'm just going to fade into the night
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, I'm also looking at like this is a hobby. I'm kind of voicing my opinion because I'm passionate about it.
Hmm.
I want want to just come home from work or whatever, put on my PC or a PlayStation or whatever,
Hmm.
and just play a game and not deal with this bullshit. And I feel that the games journalists, which are supposed to be a watchdog, because we are spending a lot of money on
Yes.
gaming. It is an expensive hobby,
Hmm.
and from what we talked about earlier, with all the shady practices that are going on within gaming, the online paying for online with the microtransactions, the season
Hmm.
pass, day one deals. I can go on and on with all this stuff, and the journalists, instead of actually talking about that, they went after so-called gamers, which were the audience, and called everyone sexist, and that's probably the most stupid part of all of this. All we were asking, me and I'm not gonna talk on behalf of anyone else. It's
Hmm.
just drop the bullshit with this political garbage, and just can you just say, does this game is this pay to win? Is this a good game? Is it
Yeah.
worth my time? Because we are spending quite a lot of money on maybe on things we could have used on travel, or buying a more better car or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
upgrading homes. Like we are spending this stuff on something instead of on games instead of something else. So I mean, this should be like the basic stuff. And I saw this when Jeff Gerstmann. I
Hmm.
already I was on the site. I was on GameSpot on the forums. I was really active before I got banned there, and
On GameSpot forums.
yeah, I
Hmm.
was there
Yeah.
for 11 years. So,
Wow.
and the reason I got banned was I asked. They went to this Metal Gear review. You know this review
Metal Gear
camp.
5 review. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
The camp review. Yeah.
yeah, and I said to Peter Brown, I think his name was, who went to this, dude, can you please uh, like say that you were under controlled environment, you didn't have this game at home, and review it on in normal fashion. And I
Hmm.
basically got banned because I pointed this out, and he even I disclosed it afterhand. And yeah, just stupid things like that. I just
Yeah.
want, like Angry Joe. He's a guy I I really don't agree with politically, and but I can watch his review, and I can understand he cares about gaming.
Yep.
He does 40-minute reviews, and I know what I'm getting myself into. That's why I bought Titanfall 2. I didn't have an Xbox at the time, but
Hmm.
when Titanfall 2 came out, I bought that game because of Angry Joe. So I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think Jeff Gerstmann and Angry Joe are the two best game reviewers in the business. Personally, um, I think Angry Joe does something that no one else in that industry dares to do, and that is to make a cohesive argument, provide examples of his argument and why he feels that way about a game, and then at the same time explain to you the varying differences of what could have been done different while playing it, and then what could have been done to make it better, while also at the same time actually giving you a score out of 10 that is logical to his argument. It's just, if you've got a guy from Texas doing it with a camera and a green screen, and he does it on his spare time, why can't someone with a journalism degree who gets paid for it professionally, works on a site professionally, why can't they do it in just a written article? Like I don't. That's what boggles my mind about the whole thing. I mean, whatever Joe feels politically, I could care less. I don't know if I'm using that
Same.
term right. As it could or couldn't. I
Couldn't
could
care
care
less.
less.
Could care.
Couldn't?
Yeah, I think so. Even though
I think
English is my,
I think I think could I thought couldn't was wrong. Anyways, um, it's regardless of what he feels politically, I don't care. That's not
yeah,
why I follow Angry Joe. I follow Angry Joe because he makes some of the best reviews I've seen. I follow Jeff Gersman because he is one of the people that has a taste for games that fits what I enjoy most about games, and its mechanics and the way a game plays.
yeah.
He doesn't
Uh,
care about, flashy graphics. He plays old Amiga games on stream. And it's kind of like why I enjoy Dan Reichert so much as well from Giant Bomb. The guy is just an absolute mad lad,
mm,
and the whole point of Gamergate was for us to know that you went to a Metal Gear Solid 5 Konami boot camp and played this game for 3 days straight, 12-hour days, and were heavily monitored by the people at Konami. Like, that's what we should know. Like, that's the point of the whole thing. It was to say, okay, look, I know this developer personally. I've backed their Kickstarter. I've done this. I know that. You know, with that being said, here's my argument for this game. Okay, cool. So what happens is, to me, it tells me you're being honest. So immediately your words to me are going to mean more than you lying to me or me finding out later, especially in a review of a game. If you tell me, hey, look, I was in this review thing, I was here for 50 hours, I was heavily monitored, but the game's like a 10 out of 10. I'm like, okay, cool. You were straight up.
yeah,
You told me what the deal was. Rather than finding out later and going, well, is the game a 10 out of 10? And then I have to go watch Super Bunny Hop do a 50-minute video about Metal Gear Solid 5 to get a critical close-up of that game.
yeah.
And again, I don't agree with Super Bunny Hop's politics either. I don't agree with anybody's politics.
Yeah,
But,
that's the kind of the whole point. We all disagree on something. We're not robots that
yeah.
agree with everything that we politically at least. And
So it's just interesting to see, I can push past that and I can see if you have a good argument. And again, I only care about video games, wrestling, and hentai. That's it. If it's not one of those three things, don't bring it at me. That's what I want.
yeah,
And fitness. That's it. So
yeah. The thing why I got so active on GameSpot is because when Jeff Gersman and I can't remember his name. He's the one who runs or he's a director of the studio that makes Bastion and what's the other game?
it's a Super Giant Games.
Yes, exactly. And when those two were there, I really liked the reviews. They were thorough, and they when I was in my teens, I listened to their reviews because I didn't have a lot of money back then. So when they made a review, they went through it very thoroughly, and I could also read the written review. And back then, GameSpot was the only site that I can remember actually doing this. They
Mhm.
had a breakdown of 5 different categories when they reviewed a game. They had graphics, they had um, they had gameplay, they had sound, they had overall, I think, presentation was part of it, and the reviewer's own bias as
Or
well.
viewers tilt is what they called it.
Yes, exactly. They called it for tilt within the 5 categories of the review. So you could see the reviewers' process and what the rate of the game, and you got a let's say an 8.2 out of 10. But you
Mhm.
could see what did the reviewer think that was bad, what did the reviewer think was good, and the
Mhm.
logic of it. But I don't see this with games at all anymore. IGN reviews games with in 5 minutes on YouTube,
Oh,
and
it's terrible.
And when I see these written articles, they don't go that thoroughly through it. It's just a rush job on just going through it as, and it's not even a representation of what the game is actually like,
Hmm.
because when we get it, we usually get a day one patch, and then
Right.
the review is obsolete. So what's the point? Well, it's
It's Go
it's
ahead.
not good for the reviewer. No, so for the consumer, they don't get an accurate view, especially with online games, with online play, and it's not representative, and it's just getting it as quickly as possible out, instead of actually informing the consumer the right way.
Hmm. Hmm. And it becomes a very almost like we need to get this review out to get the clicks, and it may not be that way, but it feels that way.
Yeah.
And I think that's the scary part. And you know, when you think about it, like, should they go back and redo reviews for like Destiny that have major content changes, or Overwatch that have major patches and things like that, or like Warframe, where the game is completely reworked from its original inception? Um, and you think about it, those are really difficult questions to answer, right? Because that's a whole other thing. But I think IGN, especially, they're doing this whole like it's between a 7 or a 10, and that's it. Like I never see a game get like a 5 or a 6, because 5 should mean average, not 7.
Yeah.
And that's the part that sort of gets me. You know what I mean? So IGN being so large and scoring out of a 7 out of 10, I think is just silly. Are they still doing decimals as well?
Yeah. 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 They are.
So then if someone can clearly tell me the difference between an 8.9 and a 9.2, I'd love to know. So like what makes a game an 8.9 and what makes a game a 9.2? Like what is the difference in that zero point 0.3 point of span of score? Like how did they logically come to that decision in that setup? I personally prefer an out of 5 scale, or as ACG does, buy now, wait for a sale, rent, never touch. I
Yeah.
think that's more logical to me, because you can say like, hey, look, this game is really great. It's got all this stuff. I would buy it now. It's worth the 60. I'd wait for a sale. This is a good game. It's got some bugs, got some kinks. Get it at a lower price when it gets worked out. Rent it. Go to Redbox. Rent it there. If you're bored, a couple bucks here and there. Don't ever touch this game. It's literally broken. But there's no logical thought process of between, like I said, a not like an 8.9 and a 9.2. There's what is a 0.3 gap? What is it?
Yeah. I actually totally agree. This is why I just can't take these reviews seriously anymore. When
Right.
they removed that transparency on GameSpot with the reviews, I just completely stopped watching the reviews. This was also in 2000, and I want to say 2012 or 2013, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just uh, I what I do to see if I want the game. I just watch gameplay trailers of the game, and see if it's something for me, and maybe I buy it down the line. But I no
Right.
longer buy them new, because even if the reviewers are correct and it's a 10 out of 10,
Mm-hmm.
let's say Metal Gear Solid 5, 10 out of 10, you have to buy it now. I still won't trust them, because
Right.
I like this is the same people, as I said with Gamergate. They're the ones that went after the consumer, said, you guys are sexist, you guys are racist, transphobic, whatever. And all I want to know is this worth my time and money to actually sit down, pay the money, and spend the time with the game. That's all I want to know.
Right.
And in the current state of affairs within the gaming industry, with all the publishers, as we talked about, pulling all this shady stuff, and I just don't know anymore if I can trust a game to be good with all these publishers. I can't trust them.
Well, look at the expansion of Twitch and YouTube. You know, the best way to determine whether a game is worth your time and money is to see it in action.
Yeah,
You know, but then even then, that is being infiltrated by publishers, giving people early copies, saying, like the Warner Brothers thing with Shadow of Mordor.
yeah. And you
You
also
know,
had was it Shadow? Yeah, I think it was also Xbox who paid off if they tagged a had a certain tag in their video in 2013 or 14.
right?
They paid but they paid them for a certain game to promote it, and
You
that
know,
was
look at Bethesda when they were giving early copies of Skyrim Legendary Edition to streamers, but they were giving day one copies to reviewers.
sure.
So it's like that's backwards. That doesn't make any sense. But we're seeing a large influx of things moving towards people seeing what the game plays like, what the game looks like. And honestly, that's the best way to determine whether or not you're willing to spend money on a game. Is
Yeah,
this
and
person having fun? Is this person playing it? Does it look cool to me? Okay, I'll buy it.
I think that's the future of what gaming is gonna go towards, because these so-called reviews, they're gonna become obsolete,
Mhm.
because people can just, okay, the review said, let's say, an 8 out of 10. Let's go to Twitch. The game has been released now. What are these streamers, or how is the gameplay? You can just mute the streamers and just watch the gameplay yourself,
Right.
and determine. So what's the point after when these reviews are obsolete when they come out, and they aren't thorough enough to inform you properly? Why the hell should you listen to them when you can just 2 seconds afterwards actually see the game itself in action?
Hmm.
What's the point of journalism if you can't actually do your goddamn job?
Right. And I think that's what really gets at me the most is if you can't do your job, if you can't sit there and say this game is a 10 out of 10 and provide a cohesive argument as to why that game is a 10 out of 10, you didn't do your job.
Yeah,
And usually when you try to do that, then the game clearly does not become a 10 out of 10. It becomes an 8 or even a 7 because there are clear mechanical issues that happen in that game that you are overlooking as a journalist, as someone, as a reviewer, as to why this game should be that score. And people don't poke holes into anything anymore. They just let it happen.
yeah. Just about that poking hole stuff. Whenever I see interviews during E3, um, I never hear critical questions regarding anything in the game. They just want to know what the game is like, and
Mm-hmm.
they have these PR, rehearsed answers, which they have probably gone over 100 times, and they can just go on autopilot. But nobody asks them, yeah, so how is the season pass? Is there gonna be enough content from launch? Or are there gonna be transactions, loot boxes? Is it gonna be pay to win? I didn't hear anything about pay to win
Right.
uh, during these interviews. Nothing. Well,
It
I
becomes
heard.
it becomes a hype machine
Yeah, exactly.
that the journalist is now a part of.
Yeah,
You know,
and
like they're using journalists as their marketing now.
yeah, and E3 is like the biggest commercial you can have. And when they basically use these publishers as shills for their
Hmm.
company, and the company the journalists are supposed to ask these hard questions for the consumers, because not everybody wants to, and they can just look at the gameplay, the b-roll during the interview, and
Hmm.
know and just, okay, what's this game like? Is it single player? Does it have multiplayer? Microtransactions? Is it all these things?
Right.
and they can actually answer that. And if they don't answer them, they look bad, and it's
Hmm.
gonna affect their sales. And if they what they answer is good, it's gonna boost their sales because people are gonna be pleased. And so that's how the market should work. And I just think you also made a video. Went through your channel here in 2 years ago exactly.
Mm.
Is E3 relevant?
Right.
Like, yeah, it is relevant, but the journalists aren't doing their job.
Well, not only that, but you've got like, is it even necessary? Look at what Nintendo's doing. They just do directs. People get more excited about a direct than they do about anything. It's 15 minutes long. Nintendo saves a ton of money. They don't have to go to LA. They don't have to buy a booth. They don't have to do any of this stuff. And they just put it right to you. They control the message. They make the hype machine on their own. They do it on their own. Nobody else is involved. From a business standpoint, that's exactly what you want, right? Like you're saving all that money, all that
Yeah,
marketing, you're just doing it in 5 minutes.
yeah. And look, I'm not a big Nintendo guy because I think like they're in how they saturate the market with amiibo and all that stuff. I think it's very shady, and also
Mhm.
the just a lot of things. I think it's shady. But when they do the directs,
Mhm.
when I just watched a little bit of it. I didn't see the whole thing because it really doesn't interest me. But when
Right.
when they did the Super Smash bit in the during E3, I
It's a
knew
bit too long.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, but I knew what I was getting.
Mhm.
So you have the release date here. This is what we changed. These are all the characters. This is what the gameplay is like, and they went to depth. So it's probably more for hardcore fans
Yeah.
of that franchise. But they did exactly what I would love to get if I wanted to
Just
watch
a real
a.
good deep dive on a game.
Yes, and you're talking directly to the developers. The journalists have become obsolete for Nintendo. You don't
Mhm.
need them anymore.
Yep.
Because the only thing they do is go on these podcasts and praise Nintendo. And you see with IGN, two of them want to go and work for Nintendo.
Right.
And how is that not a fucking problem? You even had Andrew Goldfarb work for Gearbox, I believe,
Mhm.
for the guys who made Borderlands. How is that overlap not a big problem?
And so
When
you ask yourself, what was the relationship like?
yeah,
You
so
know, was he reviewing games? What was that relationship like?
news.
Was
He
yeah,
he
like
he was Andrew Goldfarb was doing news, but the other two from Nintendo, I think they were reviewing them as well.
right, and it becomes like this. You start seeing this industry, and you start seeing how close knit it is with everyone else, and you think to yourself, well, why can't new people break into this industry? Well, that's why, because if you're not part of that clique, you're not in it. Right? You've got to make your own path. You've got to do your own thing. You got to do YouTube. You got to do Twitch. You got to be bigger than them. Because if you're not in their clique and you're not too sweet, you're not in it. You know, and and it becomes really shitty because they unfortunately they do have their political leanings and they lean that way and they do what they say and they make that important and for whatever reason that's what they want to do and let them do that. So you know what, I'm not going to give you my clicks, I'm not going to give you my money, I'm just going to find somebody that gives me the reviews that I want, and that's Angry Joe and that's other people and that's people on Twitch, and we're seeing that shift move to that and everybody's seeing it, and it's
Yeah, yeah. I
sort of
mean,
like you made your own bed, now lay in it,
yeah,
kind of a deal.
because GameSpot, they basically shifted over to being doing paid promotions and covering entertainment in general, not just games anymore.
Hmm.
Because done so much crappy things with the whole like Jeff Gerstmann stuff and
Yeah.
just all everything I uncovered when I was banned, how the community manager just wanted a certain type of discussion on the forums, and she made sure the mods were in line. You couldn't be critical of certain things,
Right.
games, or talk about certain things within the gaming industry. And you have all of these people basically living in San Francisco, narrating everything, and want a certain type of person, because the people I see going in to these big companies
Hmm.
that either review or go on the podcast, they have a certain view that aligns with the rest of them. I can't imagine Angry Joe being offered to work for IGN or anything like that, because he would,
He's a loose cannon.
yeah.
They would see
and
him as a loose cannon. Yeah.
and he would be he is actually he's very honest in
Hmm.
everything he does. He's very transparent, even if I really hate him or even disagree with him for some of the stuff he
But I
says.
respect that.
Yeah, exactly. I respect that. And that's what I don't get from these journalists. It's just like you said, it's a tight knit group that live in their echo chamber, and it's
But I think also too is they're much younger as well. I'm somewhere in my 30s, and it becomes this like, well, if you're not agreeing with me, then you're not part of this. You can't be part of this. And I just kind of see it as silly, because then you're just debasing a person based on what they believe and not who they are. And you're kind of just really just doing something incredibly horrible and just nasty and mean to someone, really. And I just think it's an immature way of behaving in general, to be honest, regardless of what someone believes in or what they see politically. People are still human beings, and they're still people, and they still have bills to pay, they still got mouths to feed, and they still have things to do. And it doesn't matter. Like, to me, it doesn't matter. Like, there's so many greater things in life that you have to worry about than just where someone leans politically. Like,
yeah,
it's just like, to me, it's just immature. Like, I can't believe I'm the guy saying that. Like, it's just silly.
yeah, with the wrestling gifts again.
The guy who rips his shirt off on streams and pours water on himself, like the guy
I, I
who
I like your flexes during when you start.
yeah, like the guy who used to flex in front of videos and just do dumb stuff all the time. And like, I've got Batman figurines on my desk, and like I play Mario. Like, I'm the one having to say about people that their behavior is immature and just not good to other people. I think that's just a sad thing. And it is what it is, and they're having to deal with it, seeing how streamers and YouTubers are moving the needle and really being a lot bigger, and they're becoming influencers, and they're starting to gain traction much larger than any of these giant mega journalist corporations can do. And you're kind of seeing that bubble just implode upon itself. And is it a good thing? No, I don't want anyone to be imploded upon themselves, but I think that's why I'm so so fascinated with Giant Bomb. Giant Bomb has people that I don't agree with politically at all, but yet there is rarely ever political discussion. There is always great gameplay discussion, and there's always really good viewpoints and context and varying points of view, and something that is just really interesting to see all the time. And I think that's the coolest thing about it, is that you can have people that are different, and they function differently, but when you really care about a thing like games or comic books or wrestling or anything, all that other stuff falls off the wayside. I think that's why I have this no politics policy, because when I play games, when I talk about games, when I don't really review games, but when I discuss things or do like critical close-ups or stuff like that, it becomes more of the it rather than the you. I think that's so important, because we deal with so much garbage on a daily basis, whether it's the news or the whatever political climate, I don't care, is happening in the world, or how shitty your day was. having a cool, fun conversation about video games, or just reading someone's different take on something, or they're just watching wrestling. I don't know. Fuck, like it's such a cool little escape from the bullshit and the garbage that it's nice. And I think that's something that's so important that people don't really see anymore. They just see like, well, which way do you lean? And I say, I don't lean any way. I lean back like Fat Joe. I don't know. Like, what do you want me to sell you? Like, like it just, it doesn't matter. Who cares?
I think what's just generally happened, because I see this whole hubbub within Star Wars is just I think it's just people who are just who either are making this stuff or reporting this stuff. They can't be honest with this stuff, and they forget the main part of it all. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
Star
It's
Wars
supposed to be just fun. It's a kid's
Star,
movie.
yeah, Star Wars is supposed to be like the journey is what George Lucas called it. It's supposed to be otherworldly. It's a galaxy far, far away. You're supposed to just shut everything off and go on this journey with some of these characters through dark times and good times, and just experience it with you. And maybe
See them struggle, see them grow, see them change, see how they think about things. It's cool.
yeah, and maybe you can learn something from it. Maybe you look inwards. Maybe it's something that relates to you and things like that. But it's just when I see gaming and Star Wars lately, it just feels the fun part of it. It's just slowly but surely, uh, it's just an afterthought.
Yeah.
And the business side of it, like the Last Jedi. Say what you want. I can respect for a Lucasfilm or whatever taking risk with a franchise and trying something new. It's just what happened afterwards, which is it's supposed to be fun. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
where you have to go in a few minutes, but
No, it's okay. I don't want to cut you off.
no. But usually I have this around an hour, so and
Okay.
it's okay. So but yeah, just in general, these things are supposed to be fun, and I
Yeah.
think, like you said, you wanted it to be about it. Just have fun with whatever you're doing, and I think
Yeah.
that's a little bit lost.
And that's kind of why I do the wrestling gifs on Twitter.
Yeah,
Because
I ship it or shit post all the time, so that's
it's
why I
it's
joined
such
you.
a
I think it's
it's such
fun.
a simple way of like deflating it, right? You're like, oh my God, that's just incredibly silly. How does he keep finding all these gifts?
Yeah,
So it just becomes this entire thing, and it's fun.
yeah.
No, but
Uh,
thanks for everything, man. It was really cool. I appreciate it.
yeah, I put your links. I'm a smaller channel than you, but hopefully maybe some go over to your channel and
Yeah,
check
that'd be
your
cool.
stuff out. So maybe you get some new followers there.
That'd be
Um,
great.
I put your Twitter and your channel. And is there anything you wanted to end on?
No, just have fun, man. Just relax a little bit, have a good time. Doesn't have to be that serious about life, and just watch some wrestling. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Thank you guys for watching and see you guys next time. Bye.